It feels like we say it every year, but this is a big year for the Texas Longhorns. And today, we're going to be walking through a season preview of the Longhorns, going through their roster, all the changes, the portal, everything you can expect from this Longhorn team. And we're also going to be going through the schedule for their 2026 season, predicting each of the games, where they're going to end up as their overall, how they're going to end up in the conference, and what their potential playoff capabilities are. Now, everybody knows that they're going to be capable of the playoffs. I don't think that that's going to be a question this year, but I want to get a good rundown and a preview of this team going into the season so we know what to expect for this team, because they got some early games that are going to be pretty big and consequential for their schedule. First, before we get into this, my name's Justin. This is the Saturday Report. If you love the Longhorns, if you want to see more of these schedule previews, please like and subscribe. But let's get right into the 2026 Longhorns. So, to start, I like to always begin these. Number one, there's going to be a structure that we follow. I'm going to go off of last year's outcomes, different staff and organizational changes, different roster changes, who left, who we got in from the portal, who we got in from recruiting, what gaps we needed to fill from those. And then we're going to go through what the actual schedule is going to look like here. But we're going to have a bit of a structure that we'll follow. I always like to start with last year's outcomes. Last year's outcomes in 2025, the Longhorns were 10-3, 9-3 in the regular season. They won that Cheez-It bowl game against Michigan, where the offense looked really good. The team itself looked really good. Obviously, there were a ton of opt-outs. There's just going to be in those non-playoff bowl games. But the offense, especially someone we're going to be talking about a lot today, Arch Manning, did look really good in that game. Your three losses last year, two of them were reasonable. You lost to Ohio State and you lost to Georgia. One of them, not so much. It's the one that kept you out of the playoff, where you lost to a bad Florida team last year. Can't have those. Can't have those down games where you're just playing down to your competition. What we've also, in looking at the games and rewatching some of them last year, you had way too many close wins against bad opponents. And a lot of them happened on the road. But one-score wins against Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt, you can't be having those, especially with the roster you have this year. It feels like every year we're saying Texas is having their best roster that they've had in a long time. Now, last year, I'll posit you that Arch Manning was a first-year starter, and his expectations were way too high nationally. I don't know if locally they were as high as they were nationally, just because he has the Manning name. I would hope not, because we all know, if you're a diehard college football fan, everybody knows a first-year starter is still learning the speed of the game. And especially if they're coming into the SEC, that speed is 10 times faster than it was in high school. So you can't expect a guy to come in and go from never starting an SEC football game to being a superstar. But he's got a lot of starts under his belt now. He's got a lot of time under his belt now. We can't be having those close wins like we did last year. We really didn't meet the expectations as a Texas Longhorns last year. We had a really good roster, but we couldn't put it all together, especially offensively. We couldn't put it together. Staff and organizational changes. Will Muschamp, the biggest one is Will Muschamp. It's the one we got to start with. He's in at defensive coordinator now, former defensive coordinator at multiple stops, including with Nick Saban at LSU, former head coach of South Carolina, former head coach of the Florida Gators. He's got an incredible coaching rap sheet. He's done it all. And what he's going to do is he's going to come in here and he's going to instill toughness in this defense. I think he's going to have a good scheme for the defense. Really, what it seems Sark has done is he's tried to bring more he's tried to bring more great defensive minds onto the staff, whether that be Will Muschamp coming in as defensive coordinator, or whether that be a guy like Mark Stoops coming in as a special assistant to the head coach. Because those guys together, when they put their brains together, including everybody else who's already on that staff, who, if you're on the Texas staff, you're close to a genius in college football anyway, at least for the majority of them. There's going to be your random ones out there. I think it's going to be really good. And the defense is hopefully going to be a highlight of this team this year. You got Blake Gideon back in Austin. You got Jabbar Jalouk, running backs coach from Florida, over in as well. Key departures. Basically, these are the guys that were drafted from last year. There's going to be guys that I missed that were maybe signed as undrafted free agents that had key roles to play last year, but I'm mostly going off of the draft here. Linebacker Anthony Hill Jr., dog, he's gone. Defensive back Malik Muhammad, dog, he's gone. All these guys were great for you last year. Linebacker Trey Moore, gone. Safety Michael Taff, he's out. O-lineman DJ Campbell, he's out. And then tight end Jack Indries is out. I don't really have much to say here. You lose a lot of really good production. You lose a lot of really good players here. Let's see what is actually returning key contributors. Some of them returning starters. Some of them were just returning that had a decent amount of snaps from last year. On the offensive side, you got Arch Manning. Wide receivers Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley. O-linemen Gooseby, Robertson, and Baker. Those guys come back. That is hopefully going to be a good anchor for your O-line, which we'll talk about later, needs to be able to show up and show out this year if you want to make it deep into the season and especially deep into the playoffs. On the defensive side, we got Colin Simmons, dog. He's awesome. He's so fun to watch. He might be one of the best players to watch on defense. Might be. He's going to be one of the best players to watch on defense this year. We got Hero Kanu. I want to make sure I'm saying that right, but I don't know if I'm saying that right. On the D-line, Alex January. At defensive back, we got Grayson Littleton, hoping he can take a big step this year. And then Ty Anthony Smith at linebacker. So, with all that returning production, or the key returning production there, where are the gaps that we need to fill as the Texas Longhorns going into recruiting and going into the transfer portal? Well, that was at O-line. We need to shore up those last couple positions and maybe get some additional depth in there, because you're never going to finish your season with your starting 5 O-linemen, it seems like, almost ever. They're some of the toughest guys on the team, but they also just, you can't help whenever they just freakishly get rolled up on and have to lose an ankle for 3 weeks. Running back, we needed to get some additional talent up top there. Linebacker, we need to deepen the depth chart there. And then special teams, I threw this in here. Your kicker and your punter graduated, and then your backup kicker and your punter transferred. So we need to get some new blood in there. And thankfully you did in the transfer portal. I don't cover it in here, but you're able to get some of those guys in. On the recruiting side, to start filling those gaps, recruiting went really well for y'all last year. On3 had you as the 10th ranked class. That's incredibly low for what you got. 24/7 had you ranked as the third ranked class. I tend to like to follow 24/7s a little bit closer, just because I think they do a better job, if I'm being honest. Anywhere between 1 and 4 5-stars is who you got. I think On3 gave you 1, 24/7 gave you 3, and ESPN gave you 4 on the star rating. Of those, the key ones that I wanted to point out, Tyler Atkinson, linebacker out of Georgia. We might see him some this year. Wide receiver Jermaine Bishop Jr. out of Texas. We might see him this year. And you also did get 5 stars, Diabell and Richard Wesley, depending on where you looked, high 4-star, 5-star for those guys. So really good class coming in, but potentially number one, a depth play at linebacker, and then maybe a guy that can go out and take some snaps for you at wide receiver as well. In the portal, this is where we just wreaked havoc and where we really filled in the rest of our gaps. You got Cam Coleman from Auburn, who is, I haven't been able to stop watching him since he stepped on campus, since his first season as a freshman at Auburn. He's really good at football. He's tall, he's big, he can go up and high point the ball. He is going to be a problem for defenses this year, and he's going to be an absolute weapon for Arch Manning. Now, to have him alongside a guy like Ryan Wingo is going to be awesome. And like, your wide receiver core is awesome. So Arch Manning has no excuses right now. He's got a bunch of weapons to go out there and throw the ball to. Running backs, you got Hollywood Smothers from NC State. He runs hard. He's going to be really fun to watch. You got Raleek Brown to be the RB2 or RB1A whenever they're probably going to be sharing carries throughout the year. You got Rasheem Biles from Pitt, linebacker. That's going to be not really a depth play. He might end up I think he's probably going to end up starting for you. Defensive tackle, you got Ian Geffrard from Arkansas. Seems like he's going to be a key contributor for you on that interior defensive line. And then you got to fill in those last 2 starting spots, it seems, on the offensive line. You got Melvin Siani from Wake Forest, and you got Lawrence Seymour from Western Kentucky. Now, two question marks I have here. How are offensive linemen from Wake Forest and Western Kentucky going to pivot and play in the SEC? Big question mark for me right there, because again, your offensive line needs to stand up and step up if you're going to make any sort of a deep run this year. And this is we're going to go into some question marks that we have for the Texas team this year, and this is one of them. And this is a key piece of one of them. The first question I have is, can you run the ball? Last year, you averaged 3.3 yards per carry. It was tough to get any momentum on the ground game consistently. You had Arch breaking off a few decent runs here and there, which definitely helped for that yards per carry. It helped on that yards per carry number. But 3.3 is not great. It's not fun at all. You have 3 O-linemen that do return, and so you hope that their development comes through and that they are able to develop a really good run game and build and open up some gaps in that run game. But you got 2 guys who have never seen SEC competition. I don't want to say never. I don't know if they've played against an SEC team in their time at Western Kentucky and Wake Forest. They haven't had a full season of playing against SEC talent. And it's going to be week after week after week. Those D linemen are going to be coming after you, and it's going to be tough. And the game of college football, the game of football in general, it's changed, it's evolved over time, but one thing has never changed, and that is that you win and lose college football games in the trenches. Look at Indiana from last year, look at Ohio State from 2 years ago, look at Michigan from 3 years ago, look at all of those great Alabama teams over the last 2 decades, look at 2019 LSU, who had an amazing offensive line that came together and was one of the better offensive lines in school history there. Look at the years that Texas plays best, is the years that they have the best talent and the best group of guys that are gelling and playing together in the trenches on the offensive and the defensive side. I'm not worried about you on the defensive side. I worry about you on the offensive side. How well can those 5 guys come together and gel? I can't say that I believe they're not going to do it, because I do. You'll see in the schedule prediction later, I'm pretty dang high on Texas this year. But if it doesn't work out, if you don't meet expectations this year, it's not going to be because of your skill players. It's not going to be because of your defensive front 7. It's going to be because the O-line, number 1, probably didn't gel together as well as they needed to, and they couldn't establish a good running game and potentially couldn't protect Arch as well as they needed to. Second question, like I said, that front 7 on the defense, solid. I have really no questions about that. The secondary, you got a lot of new faces popping up there. And we said Malik Muhammad, gone to the draft. Michael Taft, gone to the draft. What new faces are going to show up, and are they going to be able to lock down the defensive backfield? Because you have a handful of teams in here that have great passing attacks, and you need to make sure that you are shoring that up. Now, guys like Colin Simmons, they're going to make life really hard for those quarterbacks to be able to get the ball downfield, and it's going to be hard to push the ball downfield when you got a guy in your face in 2.5 seconds every single play. But you still need those DBs to lock some things down to make sure that they're sure tacklers. So that's a question mark for me, because we don't know what we're really expecting there. Last thing before we get into the schedule predictions is, what is the general sentiment for Texas fans going into this year? From what I've seen, very optimistic, as Texas fans usually are, as all of us SEC fans usually are, at least at the top end. I don't want to speak for Mississippi State and Kentucky and all those guys. But Texas fans are very optimistic going into this year. A great staff. You got a great team, an amazing roster. You brought in aliens from the transfer portal. Sark is fully ingrained in Texas football now, right? It's been 5, I don't want to say how many years because I don't know exactly. It's been a lot of years that he's been there. So there's no more excuses on timing, on roster building, on anything like that. You've got a really great team. You got Arch Manning coming back for his 2nd year, so there's no excuses of the first-year starter. We're expected to be really good. The question that I have, and I haven't been able to talk to anybody about this who's a Texas fan, so please leave it in the comments if you made it this far in the video. Is this like a deep playoff run or bust type year? Is this a national championship or bust type year? Is this a make or break year for Steve Sarkisian? I think as long as he makes the playoffs, we're good to go. We have no problems. But if he doesn't make the playoffs, let's say he goes 9-3 this year and just skirts by the playoffs because he loses one of these random games that we're going to be talking about later. Not really a random one, but he loses enough of these games that we'll be talking about. Goes 9-3, and they just missed the playoffs because the committee doesn't understand that a 9-game SEC schedule is way harder than a 9-game Big Ten schedule, and all the other things that go into it. And if they're 9-3 and they miss the playoffs, all hell's going to break loose in Austin, Texas, and in the entirety of Texas, because they are going to be rioting for this team to be in there. They have such a difficult schedule. Anyway, I digress from that. If Sark misses the playoffs in back-to-back seasons with these rosters that he's had, is he in trouble? That's a question that I have. I don't want to put him on the hot seat. I know a lot of people already have. All I'm saying is the expectations are very, very high for them this year. So with that, let's get into predicting the Texas 2026 schedule. Week 1, you play Texas State at home. That's a win. September 5th, it's going to be a fun time in Austin, but I don't think that it's going to be a nail-biter or anywhere even close to that. I think they're going to roll there. Immediately after that, we've got Ohio State in Week 2. Both teams don't have a lot of question marks. Both teams don't have a lot of problems or a lot of issues, and both teams are returning a starter at quarterback. Last year was rough in this game, and the hard part in picking this game is because I think nobody really knows what to expect based off of last year's results, because the teams, although they are much the same in their structure, they're so different in what you can expect from them. We have Julian Sayin coming back for a second year. He didn't look amazing in that game. We got Arch Manning coming back for a second year. He was seeing ghosts in that game. He did not play well at all over there. It was tough for the offense to do anything on both sides. The defenses did play pretty well. That one was in the shoe. This one's going to be in Austin. I think that Texas is going to lose this game, and here's why I say that. The main reason I say that is because Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator over at Ohio State, did such a great job of making Arch think he knew what he was seeing, and made it so that something else is actually happening. Really, what I'm saying is I think the Ohio State defense is going to make life really challenging for the offense, and especially Arch Manning, who's going to be commanding the offense. It's still early in the year. You're still gelling with your receivers. The offensive line is still figuring their stuff out. The pass rushers for Ohio State, they're going to be really good. I think that this is going to be an early loss for Steve Sarkisian. Question marks are going to start flying, but you're about to go on a run, as we're going to see here. Week 3, UTSA at home. That's going to be a win. Week 4, you're at Tennessee in Neyland. It's early in the year. They still don't know what's going to be happening at quarterback. The team's still going to be gelling. I think you win at Tennessee pretty handily. I don't know if it's going to be a night game in Neyland. I don't really think it's going to matter all that much, if I'm being honest. I think you're going to go in there and you're going to take care of business. Week 5, you have a bye week. Really early bye week. I don't like the position of this bye week on the entirety of this schedule. I understand wanting to have a bye week before Red River, but it makes it so that the back half of your schedule, which is especially hard in those last 4 weeks or so, gets a little bit more difficult when teams are better rested. But you get the bye week. You go into Red River to play Oklahoma in week 6. That's going to be a much better game than it was last year. I'm just going to put that out now, unless somehow John Mateer breaks his hand all over again or something crazy happens. Oklahoma's going to be better than they were last year. Their offensive line, their defensive line, their pass rush is going to be awesome. If the Texas O-line can gel by this point, which I'm giving them 6 weeks to do it, I think Texas pulls out the win here. That can very much change if there are still problems with the offensive line, because that Oklahoma defensive front is going to be really good this year. And that's going to cause a lot of problems, especially in the run game. So, in this game, establish the run, let your defense work for you, and I think Texas does come out with the win here, but this is one of the 4 games on the schedule that I can see being a definite potential loss. Week 7, right after that, you're going and playing Florida at home. We actually got a good string of home games here. Florida at home, I think you're going to win that game. First year, John Summerall. Everybody's sky high on Florida for some reason right now. They need to prove it to me first. Texas wins against Florida on the 17th. Week 8, Ole Miss on October 24th. That one's also at home. I think you're going to win that one too. Obviously, Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey coming into town. They're not going to make it easy for you, especially if the defensive backfield does not gel or does not step up like I think they will. But outside of them, I don't think they have all the pieces that they had last year. They lose Prince William Mielen. They lose some key pieces to the draft. Yeah, I don't think Ole Miss is going to be what they were last year, and I think Texas takes care of business there. Week 9, Ole Miss at home, or Ole Miss, Mississippi State at home. So you get the Mississippi schools back-to-back. This is on October 31st, Halloween night. You're going to get that done. Mississippi State wins, or God, goodness gracious, Texas wins against Mississippi State. Then week 10, finally we're getting some away games. And I say finally for the schedule's sake, not for Texas's sake. You're playing at Missouri. This is going to be on November 7th, and I think you take care of business here. I think you're just a way more talented team than Missouri is right now. We'll see what Missouri ends up being. Eli Drinkwitz, great coach. His roster is just not up to the talent level of Texas right now. And if your roster plays to their talent level, you're going to win. Week 11 at LSU. Spoiler if you already watched the LSU schedule prediction that I did a couple of days ago. Texas is going to win this game. I truly believe it. It's going to be in Baton Rouge at Death Valley. This is one of the 4 games that I can see Texas losing. And again, if the defensive backfield does not perform, if the offensive line has holes in it, this is going to be a really hard game for Texas to win. So we need those to be shored up by then. Roster-wise, Texas does have a better roster than LSU has right now, but it's not as far apart as I would have thought it was 6 months ago. So, tough game, close game. Texas barely pulls it out in the end. Week 12, you're playing Arkansas at home. You better roll. You did last year. You better roll in that game. And then week 13 at Texas A&M. This is where I think a few things catch up with you. Number 1, Texas A&M has a bye week 3 or 4 weeks before this. Yes, they're coming off a game where they're playing Oklahoma prior and you're playing Arkansas, so I don't want to say you should be better rested, but you're not going to be quite as banged up, likely. You're hopefully coming in with a little bit of a week of better recovery. But A&M does get a bye week a few weeks before. Your bye week was 8 weeks ago at this point, 7 or 8 weeks ago. And that's going to take a toll, playing week after week after week. Usually if we see teams that wait until week 8 or week 9 for their bye week, we see that those weeks 6, 7, and 8 tend to get to be a little bit of a challenge. You having such an early bye week, those late games are going to be a challenge. And you're playing at Missouri, at LSU. Again, thankfully you get Arkansas at home and it's not at there as well. But you bring in the traveling dynamics of traveling away 3 times in 4 weeks. You bring in the dynamic of not having a bye week in 7 or 8 weeks. Texas A&M, they're going to have a really good squad. It's going to be at Kyle Field. It's going to be a rowdy and a raucous environment. I know you never like to lose to Texas A&M, but I think you lose to Texas A&M. And that concludes our schedule prediction for Texas. That puts you at an overall record of 10-2. You're making the playoffs, and there's going to be no question about it, as long as we follow this script. I think your best case for this year is 12-0. I think you can totally go undefeated. If things click by week 2, you can go undefeated, and you can make a statement this year. Worst case, though, offensive line doesn't gel. Defensive backfield doesn't work. Arch Manning doesn't take that year 2 step up that we think he will. Worst case is 8-4. You can absolutely lose the Ohio State, the Oklahoma, the LSU, and the Texas A&M game. I don't think you will. I think this is the year that Steve Sarkisian really plants his flag and says, I'm here and I'm here for the long run. But there's a chance that he doesn't. There's a lot of question marks around Texas right now. So, Texas fans, what do you think? What games did I get right? What did I get wrong and why? What information did I miss that other people need to know going into the 2026 season? Really appreciate that. Again, if you've made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And I'll see you again for our next season prediction coming on Sunday.